Well, no, and what has it screwed up now is I actually have two Steam accounts, one of which has my old Half-Life stuff and one of which has my new Half-Life stuff. And I have two Half-Life 2 keys, and I'm afraid to add my other Half-Life 2 key to my one that has Half-Life 1 because I don't remember which one I put in the other account, and I don't want to have to go through that again of verifying all my keys.
Yes, I remember, as a matter of fact, because Half-Life 2 engine is the core for Insurgency, which I used to love to play, and I remember I did have a Steam problem with doing that. I remember, but this is some time back. I can't remember exactly all, but I remember I had to do something with the accounts, but I had to have Half-Life 2 in order to play Insurgency, if I recall, and
yeah, because it's I think because it's actually a mod or something. I forget.
But getting back to Apple.
Yeah. Anyways.
Refunding somebody's money, I think that they would. Even in iTunes, there's a big conception that once you purchase the music, you couldn't really return it. And I've actually been able to do that. And I think that now they give me their credit. They don't necessarily give me the cash back, but I certainly get a credit to my iTunes account. So at the least, they'll probably give all of those users an iTunes credit. And really icing on the cake would be cash back, but
I don't see them giving. Whoa, what was that? I'm getting some kind of echo on your side. Like I'm hearing my voice through your system.
Oh. I don't know. I don't have an echo.
Okay. Oh, it's gone now. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, no, yeah, I don't expect them to give them money back, but I do want them to get a credit because the people who primarily got screwed in Lala was through Lala you could have credits for buying stuff. Like you could buy in advance before you actually decided what you wanted, and there were a lot of people that had money tied up in that system that
like
just.
Like a Zoom Pass?
I forget exactly how it worked, but it was like it was some kind of a bulk buying thing or something. Where like you pick the few songs now and then the rest would be credits for future songs or yada yada and so forth. And all those credits, or you could be on the leasing the music pass and you have the credits. Like anybody who were in those situations with Lala, they had money in there and it just poofed. And I'd like to see them get that money back because I don't think that was fair to them. Because Apple swore when they buy it they weren't just going to turn it off, which is exactly what they did.
My final statement on that would be I'll be very surprised if Apple doesn't give them a credit. And I'll be the first one to condemn Apple if they don't. So.
Okay. It's the second complaint this person has. And I don't know how much you've screwed around with Android since you prefer the WebOS. Or iPhone, they've stated a false premise here. They said you have to do a hard reset to change your Gmail account. And this is actually something I don't like about Google either. And I get this problem because one of my Gmail accounts, in fact the one I primarily use for work, is not the same account I have YouTube and things like that. It's like I keep my work and play separate for obvious reasons.
Oh, don't get me started on like Google this and that, and then a bunch of link accounts. Oh,
yeah,
infuriating me.
Yeah. And what they're complaining about is on your phone, like there are times you'd have to switch from one account to another and yada yada and so forth. And they're stating the falsehood that on an Android device, the only way to add a new account is to hard reset the device and do the initial setup all over again. That's not actually true. You can go into the settings. I'm just wondering if you think this is one way in which Android is a little behind iPhone or WebOS or something, largely because of Google. I have mixed feelings about this because you can just go into the settings and change it. And I'm not seeing how in the grand scheme of things, other than the fact that Google does so many other services than just these accounts, like YouTube and so on and so forth, that's where it can cause problems. Because obviously my Android device is going to be linked to my work account, not my Play account, so I have to manually log into YouTube through the site to interact with it on my phone. But I'm not sure how that's any different than your iOS device being linked to your iTunes account. It's like, don't you have to go in and change things to go from account A to account B? And
if you're, God, I actually had two accounts on my iPhone 3G, and that was how I purchased apps through it. And I remember when it first came out, you could only have one account on the iPhone 3G, and I had lost this email address, and that was predominantly why I changed.
you just said, screw it, I'll start over.
Yeah, and I also had 7 Macintosh in my Macs in my house, and
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had my wife, my Mac Mini, my son. Now I don't have as many. I don't know. Maybe I have 5 now. But back then you could only have 5 computers for one iTunes account.
Right.
And I had to make another one, and it was so infuriating that I couldn't combine those accounts on the iPhone because I had some apps on one account and some apps on the other account. Well, later on I finally moved buying apps all on this one account, but they eventually got to the feature where, yeah, I'd get an app update and it would ask, and it would know exactly the iTunes login that I had for that app. I just put in the password, and this would be over the air, and it would do so for another application. Because it's just like an Android when you have these apps update, and Palm does the same thing.
Right.
They're
linked to account X, whatever account X is.
Exactly. And the iPhone would ask for one password for one set of applications and the other. So that over the air wasn't so much a problem, and it wasn't a cumbersome task to just, other than the complaint of linking it to the computer. But I know that why Apple doesn't do over the air predominantly in that they want to sync, if you want to sync music and movies, until they get a web presence of iTunes, which is beginning to happen. I've heard that they're going to start doing iTunes in the cloud, and then I think that's the marker in which you will have over-the-air updates to your iPhone via the cloud. So
I'd still like them to have over-the-air activation, and that's one of those things. We're just going to have to see how they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're an Apple. You're a bit of an Apple fan, so you have a reasonable amount of confidence they're going to do it right. I'm not the biggest Apple fan, and I've seen them bumble transitions like this that are out of their element. It's one of those, I'm kind of holding back and waiting to see how they do this. It's because if they do it in a way that, okay, good, you've caught up to what everybody else has been doing for a year and a half. If they do it in a way that still requires you to jump through the Apple hoops to use it,
that won't be. Rest assured, it's going to be iTunes over the air. You're essentially going to be able to do over-the-air updates, but it's going to be through the Apple universe. There's never going to be such a thing as some sort of neutral or third-party way of doing things with Apple. They're going to create the element, that being iTunes in the cloud, and then all subsequent services to do over-the-air updates will be pumped through that product.
Well, no, and I don't care if it's proprietary and you have to go through Apple. One of the things I feel, this is my opinion, I'm sure you disagree, I honestly feel on most of the Apple devices, the end user is kind of screwed. And the reason I say that is because the experience with these iDevices is and what you can do with them is one set of very broad tools if you're doing it on a Mac. If you're doing it on anything but a Mac, and this is true with QuickTime, this is true with all Apple stuff, it's less. It's like, this is capable of doing it, but we're not going to enable it over here. And since the vast majority of people are using these devices with Windows, I don't think that's fair to them. It's like,
it's not supported in Windows, for example, though.
Well, we're up on time. We're gonna have to cover that in the next part. But there's a list of things, so I'll go into them.